As adult children, many of us have difficulty saying no. Oftentimes, our boundaries were smashed by narcissistic parents who used us for their own needs. Toddlers need to oppose their parents in order to separate and be themselves. In this episode, you'll learn how your toddler needs were violated and how you can reconnect with your inner toddler. Good day. Thank you for coming to the show. And today I'm going to be talking about the toddler stage of development, which is like 30 million years of evolutionary energy that a poor mom and dad have to take care of. This is the time that parenting really gets tested. And I've said in previous programs that being a parent is probably the hardest job that anybody's ever going to do. And you need a lot more to prepare you for it than a blood test. And unfortunately, so many of us grew up with moms that did the best they knew how to do, but they were young when they had us, because in bygone days, people got married earlier, much earlier. So it's really important that we understand some of the dynamics of this developmental stage. It's a separation stage. A child starts separating now. Somebody's called it the stage of psychological birth. We've been physically born, now we have to begin to be psychologically born. In another program we talked about reclaiming the infant, and that really for the infant, I am you. The infant is one with the mother, the mothering person. Now the child will begin to separate. I have these little indexes of suspicion. I like to give little tests and to sort of help you to check out whether you got your toddler needs met or not. So we're going to be looking at things like this. Toddler is usually divided into two stages, 9 to 18 months and 18 months to 3 years. At about 9 months, children begin to explore. They start touching and tasting and holding and trying things out. And it's a stage of holding on and letting go. It's a stage of musculature. And so they like to hold on to things and let them go, like spitting. See, we've forgotten how wonderful it was to spit the first time. You know, and in puberty, this will come back. If you've ever seen a bunch of adolescents standing around spitting, you know, like... But these are wonderful things if you've never done them before. And holding on, letting go, that's potty training. There's lots of muscles that have to be trained to hold on and let go. Trying out new experiences. Children are naturally curious, naturally exploratory. We did another program on the wonderful child and how they are full of wonder and curiosity. So they will start exploring. In my own life, I don't know what happened to me here, but it wasn't good, because I'm very fearful of new experiences. I enjoy vacations when they're over, when we're showing the slides in the living room. Like there we are in the Grand Canyon. When we were there, I'm terrified. And I think the bus won't be there. Have you got the tickets? Will the house be gutted when we get home? So very, very important, trying out new experiences. A feeling that you ought to follow other suggestions. Often those of us who didn't get this needs met, we follow other suggestions like an order to be obeyed. Somebody says, well, you ought to move into a high-rise. I don't want to move in a high-rise. I have no desire to be in a high-rise, but I'm thinking about it. And I've already looked at 3 high-rises. It's like, you know, I don't want to be in a high-rise, but they said it, I better think about it. Frequent conflicts with authority. We're going to talk about rebellion here. And some people are still rebelling. The ghosts of mom and dad. Fear of anger. You're manipulated by anger. You're manipulated by anger. You either manipulate with anger or you're manipulated by anger. You avoid conflict at any cost. Give in, but don't have conflict. Almost phobia about conflict. You avoid saying no directly. You say yes when you want to say no, and then you manipulate and do it in a variety of indirect and manipulative ways. You lie to people. You get sick so you can't do it. I see some of you grinning. These are the index of suspicion whether you got your toddler needs met. So what we're going to be doing in this program is looking at this wounded inner child and seeing whether we got these toddler needs met. Now, the 9 to 18 months is an exploratory stage, and what a child needs to do in this stage is explore. Remember that we've talked about, growing up to be an adult and having a little child inside of you that never got his or her needs met. This is my picture of an adult child. So I grow up, I have an adult, but I could still have a wounded little toddler in there. From 9 to 18 months, I need an environment that's safe enough that I can explore. And ideally, in a healthy family, you child-proof a few rooms. This is not an easy time. And in heterosexual couples, or any couple, you need to have both people there for this child to grow up. This child needs protection, and this mother needs protection, or whoever the mothering person is, because this kid is really something. I mean, there's lots of energy here. And getting into everything, eating everything they can try, dropping bases, look at, hey, watch this, boom. Isn't that interesting? That China base, look at that. See, holding on and letting go. Potty training. Potty training. And sometimes you get rewarded for holding on, like in the department store. Sometimes you get punished for holding on, like in the potty. Sometimes you get punished for letting go, like in the department store. Sometimes you get rewarded for letting go, like in the potty. This can be very confusing. So there's a tremendous kind of dynamic that's going on as this child explores and needs to, infinite patience. Infinite patience. See, if here I am as a little toddler and I got a dad who's an adult child himself and he never got his needs met, I'm going to be parented by his 2-year-old. Because these needs are recycled. Like as you go through your own children's developmental cycles, these needs are going to come up. And this little kid is needy right here. This kid is needy by nature, not by choice. But this little kid is needy too. But this kid is needy because he or she never got their developmental needs met. And so when this child begins to express anger and this energy and be rambunctious. Like in the program we did on infancy, you heard Seymour sharing that he got his needs met in infancy. He was welcome to the world, but boy, when he got rambunctious. And what I've found is that people really have trouble with this developmental stage. This is where the old poisonous pedagogy starts coming in. This is where corporal punishment starts coming in. This is where yelling and name-calling starts coming in. This is where you start getting shut down. So it's very important that we understand how important this stage is. Now, from 9 to 18 months is one part of the toddler stage. From about 18 months to 3 years, this is when the kids start saying, no, I won't. I was in the airport about 2 days ago, and the mom was walking with this little boy, and he said, no hold hands. See, you're mistaking me for somebody that wants to hold your hand. I'm going it alone here. He's saying, I'm going it alone. And really incredible that children will start doing this. See, this has often been called the innate depravity of original sin. And we really got to understand that this doesn't have anything to do with anything like that. That this isn't about innate depravity. This is about normal biological development. A child at 18 months, like night follows day, will start saying, no, I won't. You can't make me. And it's what's called an oppositional bonding stage. The child is in oppositional bonding, or it's a counter-dependency stage. See, the healthy infancy was really a kind of a codependency stage, where my sense of self depends on looking into a face and having it reflected back. And Barry and Janae Weinhold have really done this beautifully, talking about the stages. There's a codependent stage, a counter-dependent stage, that's the toddler stage. In another program, we'll look at the independent stage, the preschooler. And then school age is an interdependent stage. An interdependent stage where you learn to cooperate. You learn social skills. You learn to be part of a group. And those 4 foundational stages will be recycled all through our lives. So this no, I won't, and expressing anger, oh man, little temper tantrums. And a child needs firm guidance here. Here is where some kind of limit and structure needs to be. Erickson calls this stage, Erik Erikson, in his developmental scheme, this is the stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt, he says. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. See, autonomy is separation. I'm going to be me now. In infancy, I am you. Now I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be myself. No, I don't want to. I was walking in our center recently, and little Carly, who's a daughter of one of the people there, her mother said, "Say good morning to Mr. Bradshaw." Carly's about 3. Carly said, "No." It's like, you're mistaking me for somebody who wants to talk to this guy. So I just went walking up the stairs, and I said, "That's great, Carly, that you can say no." She said, "Good morning, Mr. Bradshaw." And that's very typical of oppositional bonding. I mean, this is actually, if you get onto it, all you have to do, you don't want to tie your shoes to it. Yes, I do. You don't want to go to bed. Yes, I do. Now, they get onto this after a while, but it's very, very good in the beginning if you can remember that it is an oppositional bonding stage where a child is separating. It's very important. Listen to this. It's very important that a child gets it that I can be angry at you and you will still be there. See, how many in your lives, like with a close friend, or you wouldn't express anger because you're afraid of abandonment? Or in a close, intimate relationship, you don't know how to express anger. You don't know how to express anger because you're afraid you'll get abandoned. See, when I expressed anger as a child, I got abandoned. Anger was one of the 7 deadly sins in my family. And I mentioned in another program about Sister Ida's actual pictures of hell that she used to pass around and say, this is what your soul looks like under mortal sin. And anger is one of the 7 deadly sins. I'm not going to do an anger. I am sure not going to do an anger. So what do you do with your anger? Remember, emotions are primary. Emotions are forms of energy. So what do I do with that energy? You swallow it. You bite the bullet. It goes into your muscles. That energy's got to go somewhere. You start shallow breathing. This is a way you stop yourself from having that energy. Some of you watched the program we did on original pain where you saw Cindy beating the bataka stick, and Kip said, bring it up from deep and growl. Excuse me. Scaring somebody. Get that anger out. Get that anger out. See, because that anger is our protection and our strength. Without that anger, we have no protection. The other piece of this is that conflict resolution. I'm spitting. Conflict resolution. That we have to know that. How do you resolve conflict? You ever been in a relationship? You're going to have conflict. Somebody shook their head, no. Oh, we're going to have conflict. So how are we going to solve? See, we're different. Every one of us is different as a thumbprint. So of course, 2 unrepeatable, unique people are going to have conflict. We come from 2 different family systems. So it's enormously important that we have some kind of way to remedy conflict. Now, what happens to us in this developmental stage, the growth disorder, Fritz Perls said neurosis is growth disorder. Neurosis is the word we used to use. We now call it codependency. Codependency is a much better word. It doesn't have the same sort of negative connotations. I'd much rather be a codependent than a neurotic or a borderline personality or something like that. So anyway, a lot of the importance of this stage is to learn that I can be angry, you can be angry. Mama is both good and bad to me. That is, she pleases me sometimes and sometimes she doesn't. This is called object constancy. That the same person is both and healthy shame is really knowing limits, knowing that the same person is both and, that the same person can be good mama, bad mama, that I am both and. See, in your relationships, isn't it important that you be able to accept the person you're with as they are, both and? Nobody's perfect. So healthy shame lets you know that you can make mistakes, that you need help, that nobody's perfect. Now, what starts happening, the growth disorder here is toxic shame. It's we begin to internalize what is a natural human emotion of limits, shame and doubt. Erickson says autonomy versus shame and doubt. That's the developmental polarity here. We have to develop autonomy. We also have to have a sense of shame and doubt. Now, shame is a natural human emotion, but it has to be fostered, or else it can become overwhelming. It can become absolutized. In the sense that instead of blushing, instead of being embarrassed when I make a mistake, when I'm caught off guard, when there's sudden rupture of my expectations, I don't have the feeling of shame. Shame becomes my identity, so that I become shame-based. I don't believe that I make mistakes. I believe I am. I don't believe that I did something wrong. I believe there's something wrong with me. I believe there's something wrong with me. See, I believe that a lot in my life. Deep down, I would have this sense that there's something wrong with me. I think there's something wrong with me. So what do you do if you feel that? See, if you feel that, you're split inside. It's like being split. Here you are, and you're an object of contempt to yourself. So it's like there's one part of you over here, and there's another part of you over here, and they're at war with each other. You're an object of contempt. Somebody said, when you're shame-based, it's like I am no longer in me. I am no longer in me. My anger is not good. My sadness is not good. My fear is not good. And in my family, and a lot of families, you could only be happy for a certain length of time because there were starving children in China, or there were starving children in Latin America. So if you were having too much fun, you were reminded, we've had enough fun. So even joy got shamed. See, when I'm having a great time, this voice comes on and it says, there must be something wrong here. You're not supposed to be this happy. Life is a valley of tears. And there was a little prayer, one teacher I had used to make us say this prayer. I had a hard time in Catholic elementary school. Now I have some nuns that I love. I still write Sister Mary Uberta. She's one of my favorite people in the world. She loved me unconditionally. And I don't mean blame by any of this. I've said this many, many times. We're trying to correct rules about raising children. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand in an emerging consciousness that a lot of what we've been doing is highly abusive, that we have thought was normal, scaring the hell out of children. So we'd start in the morning with this prayer, straining to leave this life of woe. With anguish sharp and deep I cry, I die because I do not die. Isn't that a happy little hummer to start the third grade off with? I mean, come on! I am a vibrant little kid. That's a prayer of a mystic, St. Catherine of Genoa. I mean, for mystics, I don't know, they got something else going. And whatever it is, it's a high level of spirituality. And I don't want to, I don't want to put that down, but not for third graders or fourth graders. So the spiritual wound, what I call the spiritual wound, is you can't be who you are. It's not okay to be you. In the very first program of this series, I established the idea I Am I. In the program on original pain, I talked about the spiritual wound, that you can't be who you are, that the way you are is not okay. In a healthy family, they look at the way you are and they orchestrate life so that you can become who you are. In an unhealthy family, they tell you how you should be. And you see, I believe that everybody's got a wounded child, because I don't believe you can be born into a culture, any culture, that doesn't already have an idea of how a man's supposed to be and how a woman's supposed to be. If it's a headhunter culture, you got to be a good headhunter. And we train you to be a good headhunter. So what we're going to see in this series is that ultimately there's a place where every one of us have to get in touch with that wonder child in us, which is your true and most authentic self, which is your soul self, your higher self, some people call it, your imago Dei, some people call it. But it's the part of you that cries out when you're abused. I read you that David Mura piece in another program, where he talks about the soul is the part that knows we're being abused. Even 3-year-olds can know that they're being abused. They can't even put a name to it, but they know it at some deep level. So the spiritual wound is this toxic shame. See, we only have one word for shame in English, so I developed a word, toxic shame, which is when it's internalized and it becomes your identity, and you're not allowed to separate. So what happens to you is something like this. Let's say here's your parent, this parenting person, whoever it is, and they have this inner child that's wounded. They don't ever let you separate. They don't ever let you be the person that you are. So you have to measure up. And when you leave home, this is going to happen in school too. Do you measure up? Do you make 100s? It's going to happen in culture. Are you a perfect 10? Do you have big stuff? Do you measure up? I mean, this is crazy that we're in this culture that has all these ideas about big is good. I can't tell you the people I counseled who felt inadequate because they weren't endowed. Women with breasts or men with penises that were supposed to be adequate. And this is crazy. You know, that's like feeling bad because you're short, which some people do. Feeling bad because you're tall, which some people do. So this is a very painful kind of thing, that this toxic shame. And so you got to cover it up. See, healthy shame is the permission to be human. Toxic shame, you try to be more than human. So how do you be more than human? Be perfect. Perfectionism is a cover-up for shame. And guess what one of the shame-based family rules is? Perfectionism. Another way you can cover up shame is control. If I can control you, can never catch me off guard. See, so if I can be in control of everything, I'll never be caught off guard. That's another cover-up for shame. Blame. If I can blame you, then, you know, righteousness. That's why we have so much religious addiction. We're saved and you're not. Pray for your unsaved brothers and sisters. What hubris! What pride for someone to... I've heard guys on national television saying this. My God! Don't they have any shame? Don't they have any shame? The answer is no. You see, and when parents are shameless, they act perfect. I have clients who say, my daddy would die before he said he made a mistake. Shameless. That's shameless behavior. Parents are reference librarians. We're reference librarians. We don't know all the answers. Nobody's ever going to do this perfectly. It's too difficult. So you don't ever get to separate. Abuse bonds you to the abuser. Abuse is bonding. People get bonded to the abuse because what abuse teaches you is that this is what a relationship is. Control, perfectionism, blame, righteousness, or the opposite is less than human. So be more than human. Toxic shame, one polarity is more than human. The other one is just be a slob, be a bum. Don't care what, don't care about your children. Let them go. Don't be there for them. Don't give them any structure. Don't put any structure in their life. See, it's all or nothing. All or nothing. And so what is one of the characteristics we talk about of toxically shamed adult children codependence? And I use all three of those as synonymous. We talk about polarities, all or nothing. You sleep with everybody or nobody. You won't talk, and once you start talking, you can't stop talking. You can't start anything. Once you start, you can't stop what you've started. So it's an incredible polarity, but there's no sense of what's balance. Life's about balance. And when people are healthy, they have a healthy sense of balance. So we don't know how to remedy conflict. We can't handle differences. We don't know what we feel, need, or want. We don't know what someone else feels, needs, or wants. Because we've never separated. We've never had this psychological birth. See, every child needs a sense of psychological birth. And when you come out of a family where you've never been allowed to separate, and if mom or dad is an adult child, they can't let you separate. They either want you to get out of there, hurry up, and get out of here so I don't have to take care of you, or don't ever leave. Because you're here to take care of my loneliness. You're here to take care of my pain. Now that's an enormously important thing that we have to understand. So what do we do about this? How do we work with this little infant? Because I can't imagine anybody growing up in this culture and not having some of this pain. And one of the things I've found in my workshops and when we've done this work is that when we get people to this developmental stage, here's where everybody starts numbing out. I do these exercises and people can't feel anything. And I've tried, like, we did the infancy exercise where we had people sitting in circles and had a person sitting in the middle and hearing these affirmations. Well, I got this tape in the mail. I get tons of tapes people send me. And this one fascinated me. It was called Remember the Child by Richard Wagner. And so I took it with me, and I was playing it in the car, and it was so moving. I started crying. I almost had a wreck. I had to stop the car. And so I decided I would try this in the workshop to see if it touched people the same way. And it did. And I couldn't find Richard for a long time. We finally found him. Mark Baker helped me to find him. And so what I did is I asked Richard to come and to record his song. He wrote this song called Remember the Child. He wrote it for the Child Abuse Center in San Antonio. And this comes right out of Richard's heart. There is some brilliance in this song. So what I'd like you to do now is listen to it, watch it as Richard plays this song. I recommend just closing your eyes and listening to the tone, listening to the sound, listening to the words, and just let your own wounded inner toddler get in touch with some scene or some place where you've been pained in your childhood. So let's listen to that now.
talk so loud. I won't laugh so hard. I'll shut my mouth. 1, 2, 3 for you, Ma. I won't make a sound. Do, re, mean and angry words are all I hear through my bedroom wall, dead loud and clear. Do, re, mi, I lie awake and shake with fear, and wish I had no ear. Try to remember the child that once was you. Did you hide in the darkest corners of your lonely room and pray to God to help you through the long and lonely night? I prayed to holler, Mama, oh please come hold me tight. Go on and close your eyes, Mom. Take a little trip through time, Dad. Let it all come back to you, and give unto every child the love denied to you. And remember, the child will remember. And remember, the child will remember his whole lifetime too.
This song touches powerful feelings in me, and I can see it touches them in you too. The words, it's sometimes hard to hear those words. Rock me in your arms a little while. Daddy, the child going to his dad, not understanding why Daddy's so angry. Don't you love me, Dad? What have I done so bad? I won't cry anymore. I'll just lay in silence down here on the floor if you don't want me anymore, because that's the way a child interprets this. There was something wrong with me. I laugh too loud. I talk too loud. I'll shut my mouth. I won't make a sound. See, it's like almost the epitome of what a child is, not making a sound. And we often think children are so well behaved because look at how they march up to their room. I lay awake listening to fights in the other room. I cry myself to sleep in my pillow. Do you hide in the darkest corner of your lonely room? So Richard is crying out to give unto every child. And remember, the child will remember his whole lifetime through. Now, I did a whole program on original pain and talked about the brain chemistry of child abuse. But what I want people to hear is that this happens much more than people know. This thing I talked about at the National Center for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, where they said one catastrophic experience, if you're helpless, can change brain chemistry, can cause the hormones that are exuded in times of stress, almost like the on button gets stuck and you just keep having all this adrenaline surge. So you become hypervigilant. You're easily startled. You actually take on, Timon Chermak, a very brilliant psychiatrist, has shown us that children from dysfunctional families, where there is chronic, where there is trauma going on, have the same kinds of symptoms as post-traumatic stress disorder victims. Now, what is trauma to 2.5-year-olds? To somebody that's, 5 times your height and 5 times your weight? What would trauma be when they're screaming at you, when they're hitting you, when they're making you go get belts and fly swatters and threatening you with what's going to happen to you and taking you down to police stations or burning your hands or we could go on, beating you, switching you, bending you over, stripping you naked, and you don't have any protection, and not only that, you can't even talk about it. You can't talk, you shut your mouth. Don't you open your mouth. You quit crying, I'll give you something to cry about. But listen to Alice Miller. My belief is, she says, that the abused inmates of a concentration camp are inwardly free to hate their persecutors. The opportunity to experience their feelings, even to share them with other inmates, prevents them from having to surrender their self. Because abused children, codependency is a disease of the developing self. You don't get to develop a self. This opportunity to talk to somebody and express it and cry about it and release the pain does not exist for children. They must not hate their father. They cannot hate him. They fear losing his love as a result. Thus, children, unlike concentration camp inmates, are confronted by a tormentor that they love. See, we're just beginning to understand the incredible consequences of this kind of stuff. I yelled at my children. That is abuse. That's offender behavior, rage, and I'm pained about it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to express anger. I didn't have any boundaries. And I'd be good guy, people-pleasing daddy till I couldn't take it anymore. Then I'd go crazy. And then I'd feel so bad. I'd feel so bad. Then I'd become good guy, people-pleasing daddy again. And you see, lots of us have been raised with this stuff, and we don't get it, that this can even cause the pain-mediating cells in the brain. Marpuggio and Spinelli did a study where they showed chronic abuse causes the pain-mediating cells to cluster. And I talked about the gated brain, like once you get to your thinking brain, you close the door and you have all this pain in there, but you've never expressed it. Marilyn Mason, who is a pioneer in transgenerational, the passing on of shame from one generation to another. Marilyn Mason and Merrill Fossum wrote a book called Facing Shame. They talk about these shame-based rules. Marilyn Mason once said, I heard her say, that the most dangerous place for any child is the American family. Now, wow, think about that. So I treat people in my workshops, in our treatment center, like abuse victims. We have them debrief. We have them write. And so what I ask people to do in the workshop is to write a letter. Write a letter to your dad. I mean, just write a letter to your inner child after you listen to Richard's song and talk about what you felt. Tell that child that you know better than anybody what they've been through. Tell them that you want to come get them, that you want to parent them. So I want you to watch people writing these letters now. So what I'd like you to do right now is I would like you as an adult, the grown-up you, to write the little child in you. Dear little John, little Susie, little Mary, little Stephanie, little Janice, I know better than anybody what you've been through. And I remember the time when, if you can remember a scene, if a scene's come up for you, write about that. Couple of paragraphs. And then in the last paragraph, just tell them that you'd like to be their champion now. You'd like to be their caretaker. Remember, it won't cost you anything. You don't have to feed or clothe them. That what we're establishing is an inner connection with the child. It's the idea now of connecting with them, that we're going to go get them after a while. We're going to go get them in this internal meditation. But just for right now, write them a letter. So what the writing of the letter is a kind of debriefing. It's a kind of work that's done with post-traumatic stress disorder victims. And we do it in our treatment center. We have people write about the kind of abuse, what happened to you, and it's very important to write details. It may seem cruel, but it's very important. It's much more important if a woman tells me my daddy was controlling and abusive, or she tells me he tied me spread eagle to the bed and fingered me to see if I was still a virgin. Now, you felt that. You feel it when you write the details. There's a saying in therapy that you cannot fail with detail. So once I've had people do the writing and the sharing of the writing, then we do an exercise where we do an age regression. And I talked about age regression, how spontaneously we'll age regress if we have a wounded inner child, and how important it is to go back and touch this child. So what you're going to see in just a minute is an age regression where I am going to give the affirmations to the toddler. In the infancy work, you saw a person sit in the center of the group, close their eyes, and hear words from all the people around them. Welcome to the world. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're a girl. I'm glad you're a boy. You'll have all the time you need. In this one, I'm going to have them connect with that inner toddler and give the inner toddler the affirmations. So I want you to watch this piece. Allow yourself to go back in your memory, back to the earliest house you can remember. If you can't see it clearly, that's okay. Just get a sense of it. And just imagine now that somewhere in the backyard there's a sand pile, there's a swing, and that you walk back there, you, the grown-up you, walk back there, and you see a little toddler. Or hear them, get a sense of that little child there. That this is the child you once were. Really look at them. Look at their eyes. Look at their hair. What are they wearing? Tell them who you are. I'm Big John. I'm from your future. I've written you a letter. I want you to come home with me. I know better than anybody what you've been through, what it was like, about your hurts, your loneliness. Just imagine you could look up for a moment, be that child looking up at the grown-up you. That you could see the grown-up you standing there in your most compassionate, warm, loving face. And hear the grown-up you saying things to you like, it's okay to be who you are. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to be a little girl, to be a little boy, to want to taste things and touch things and explore and feel what sand feels like, what mud feels like, what things taste like. It's okay to be different from me. I won't leave you. Tell that child, I won't leave you. I won't leave you. It's okay to cry. You can be a big girl and still cry. You can be a big boy and still cry. It's okay to be angry. I'll set some limits for you. I can be angry at you too. It's okay to say no. I won't leave you if you say no to me. And I won't punish you. I won't hit you or hurt you. I will never hurt you. It's okay to choose to do your own things. You can be dirty and messy sometimes. Your curiosity is more important than a clean house. I love you. I love you just the way you are. And now if you feel like it, just let that big person hold you and hear those nurturing things from them. I love you just the way you are. Your needs are okay with me. I love you just the way you are. It's okay to feel what you feel. I won't leave you. Now tell them that you want them to think about living with you. Put them down, tell them you want to think about it, that you're coming back to get their answer. Give them a big hug if that's okay with them. Walk forward in time. See your life passing on the left side, your earliest school years, your high school days. And just imagine that you're walking back in this room, that you're in this room now. You're sitting in your chair. You can feel the chair. Take a deep breath. Take another deep breath. And then just open your eyes slowly. 1, 2, 3. Open your eyes. Now you can get a feeling of what that kind of exercise is like. You may have even gone there as you listen to it. This is a segment that's been edited for television, so we've cut it out. It's a much longer piece. Now, once they're through with this kind of exercise, then it's enormously important, like we did in the infancy claiming, to share. Because we all come out of these no-talk, no-feel households where you're not allowed to talk about your feelings. So what you're going to see in a minute here is you're going to see people sharing about how this experience was for them. And what you're going to hear is a dramatic expression of the spiritual wound. Rhonda's going to talk about that she couldn't be different. Anytime she acted like herself, she got creamed. Stephanie and Karen will say, they'll really give you an example of neglect, not over-discipline, but no discipline, that their kid doesn't trust them because there was never anybody there for them. And then the most dramatic part of this sharing is Dennis, who was an offender, who is sitting there with his teddy bear that represents his inner child that he calls E.T. Boy. And he'll talk about, I'm afraid, you know, E.T. Boy's afraid I won't come back and get him. And I'm afraid I won't go back and get him. And then he says, but I am going to go back and get him. So watch this.
I always see him yearning for me, you know, just yearning. And so when I went to play with him, I was able to give him these affirmations that it's going to be okay and that I would be there for him. I know that I can nurture this boy, and I know that I can give him some of the things that he needs. And I was able to bring the two of us together, and that was a good feeling.
I really got in touch with the rage and the anger about not being able to be myself, just to be an individual that's different, with different opinions and different thoughts than my mother and dad and my sisters.
My child was so relieved to have somebody come to her, and she just ate it up. She just crawled right into the fur with that dog arm, and her arms around me and kissed me. I was so glad I was there.
I just felt real sad because she kept saying, yeah, you'll leave, everyone else has, you will too.
There was a lot of fear there that she didn't trust me.
It was astonished that somebody understands, that I understand, that I know, he understands clearly that I know better than anybody what he's going to have to go through, what he's been through. And when I was being asked to leave E.T. Boy there, and that's my nickname, and to go back, to come back here, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to go back and get him, because he ain't never had nobody. And I'm just afraid. You know, he's never had nobody, so it doesn't make him no difference, it seems like. Ain't nobody was there, why should there be somebody there now? But I am going to go back.
See, in order to heal the pain, we've got to embrace the pain. The only way out of the shame is to embrace the shame. We're all dealing with a set of rules that came out of a very primitive, survivalistic mode of life that have been carried down through the generations, and because people idealize their parents, we can't challenge these rules, and that's what we're doing here. You see the pain. These people are from every walk of life. They're black and brown and white and rich and poor and male and female and every walk of human life. And this is the pain we're finding all over the country. What I'd like you to do right now is just close your eyes for a second and just let you, the viewing audience, just close your eyes for a second. Take a nice deep breath. Just take another deep breath, because most of us never learned to breathe deeply. We couldn't breathe deeply. So breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and hold it. 1, 2, 3, and then just gently let it out. And as you let it out, just allow yourself to go back in time. Just allow yourself to go back to the earliest dwelling you can remember. And really take a look at it. Just stand there and look at it. Is it a house? Is it an apartment? Is it in the country? Is it in the city? And just imagine coming out of the door of that dwelling, you see a little bitty toddler. And even if you can't see him clearly, just get a sense that there's a little bitty toddler there. And just walk up to him and tell him, I'm from your future. And I love you, and it's okay to be you. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to say no. It's okay to be curious. I'll put protective bounds. I'm the one that sent you the letter. And I love you just the way you are. And continue that after this program is over. Let yourself continue that. Take a nice deep breath. Nice deep breath, and open your eyes and just be here. But do that. Do that some more with that little toddler, telling them. Now I want to close this program. This is a wonderful poem from Hopkins. He says, as kingfishers catch fire and dragonflies draw flame, as tumble over rim and woundy wells stones ring, each mortal thing does one thing and the same, selves goes itself, myself it speaks, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. What I do is me, for that I came. That when we fail this developmental stage, and I want to tell you a depressing thought, that with the rash and wave and identification of codependency, a lot of us didn't make it through this stage. We fail psychological birth. And when you fail psychological birth, you become a people-pleasing, sweetheart, codependent, nice guy, or a raging rebel who is still fighting every authority figure, fighting the ghosts of mom and dad. But one or the other, we either conform or we rebel, but it's just not okay to have your life just the way it is. So it's enormously important that we go back and we tell that wounded little toddler that it's okay to be who they are, to have that life spark, that it's okay to say no, it's okay to play, it's okay to express anger, it's okay to feel. It's okay to be angry and sad and afraid and all those things that are just human things. Tell them that. They need to hear that and own them and love them. And I'll see you next time when we reclaim your wounded inner preschool child. Thank you.